All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Thursday. Today we're going to look at artist Carrie's colors, and she'll be with us tomorrow in the studio. Also, there was a question from Raffaele about the whites. So I brought out 2, 4, 6 of the whites. So we'll look at the whites today as well. And for those of you that stay to the end, there is I wanted to show you some creativity in action. And Paul Wang has a really neat little video that he did where he uses a tube of paint to paint a tube of paint. And I thought we would all look at that together. And I want to show you a quick video of water soluble oils as I'm bringing Bob on within the next 2 months to show how to use the water soluble oils. Okay. So with that, let me just really quickly here turn on so I can read the Facebook. There's Facebook. Okay. Hello, Besnick. Hello, Raffaele. And it's good to see you guys on the Facebook side. All right. It's kind of hard to believe we're already in the month of February. Hey, Ethel, I sent you a message on Messenger. Can you read that for me?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so we're good. So we're down Carrie's name so you can see it.
We also have in the chat, John,
Yes.
Carrie links to her brand ambassador page.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
yeah. And I'm going to share it in our chat for Facebook as well.
So this is the artist for tomorrow, and Ethel's going to post information so you can look at it. We're going to be looking at Carrie's colors today. Let me make sure you saw that. Carrie's a brand ambassador. Let me turn this back. For those of you that just got seasick, sorry about that. Okay, so transparent pyrrole orange. Kind of mix them up a little bit today so we can see some of them in sticks and some of them as pans. So Giovanni, Gabriel, Johnny, if you guys could do the wonderful job you do in terms of mixing, because I'd like to show the mixes, you do them really wonderful. If you could, if you would.
Love to, John.
That's
Right
cool.
before mixing.
second pyrrole. So it's pyrrole orange and pyrrole red. That's interesting.
What's the weather like in Seattle, John?
You know, it is still kind of, it's rainy and it's overcast. But I think last weekend when I was out, the sun stayed out to almost 5:10 because we were getting dark at about 3:40, 3:30. So, you know, we're getting that precious 2 minutes of daylight every day, which is phenomenal. So you never have to
Very
ask that
nice.
question. You never have to ask that question when you live in Seattle. You just say, oh, it's, you know, it's just another beautiful day.
Very nice.
John,
Yes.
just on the subject of we were talking a few weeks ago about reds and getting
Yes.
a nice middle ground red. I've solved the problem
You did.
with sticks. With the sticks that I've got. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see that.
Yes, we see that, Ian.
At that side, we've got pyrrole red.
Okay.
And at the other side, we've got pyrrole orange. Put those two together and you get a lovely middle ground red.
Oh, very cool.
That's obviously with sticks that I've got. So that's a nice conclusion to that issue that I had.
So there's pyrrole orange. And this is pyrrole red, you were saying. There's pyrrole red and pyrrole orange. Pyrrole orange, pyrrole red, pyrrole red, pyrrole orange. Is that what you were saying, Ian? Yeah. Okay, cool. Hello, Joan. Hello, Angela.
I have a question that I've been thinking over for about 2 weeks now. And I'm also curious if some of the other artists would be willing to talk about it and maybe meditate on the question a little bit. I'm preparing the color swatches for a painting that's coming up. And I know I went, I know Gabriel, you'll enjoy this. I know I went a blue and an orange working with it. And I'm trying to decide, Ian, you were talking about the pyrrole orange. I'm trying to decide between the pyrrole orange and ultramarine versus permanent orange and ultramarine and working with this. And what I'm finding is that I prefer the hue of pyrrole orange, but I prefer the characteristics of permanent orange. It has the granulating effect and the creeping characteristics that I like to exploit and celebrate. So my question is, so I prefer the hue for pyrrole, but I prefer the characteristics for permanent orange, pigment orange 62, I believe. The question is, do we have more extensive vocabulary to talk about the characteristics of watercolor? We have vocabulary to talk about granulation, flocculation, reticulation, and creep within the pigment. We can talk about staining and lifting. We can talk about surface tension and particles being suspended. But I feel as though we are lacking vocabulary to be actually talking about how the particles interact with each other. And maybe does that mean because we need to go more into the physics or the chemistry of it? And I was wondering if other artists are challenged with this also.
That's a good question.
Beautiful,
Sorry.
really beautiful.
For me, is it possible that both of those two oranges could be added together to make a super color?
Are you
I would
talking-
encourage you, Ian, to read a book called Blue and Yellow Don't Make Green by Wilcox. It talks about how they neutralize each other and lose the intensity of color when you do that. Sorry, that's what I found when I was doing some of the color work here.
So lots of things can happen when you mix colors, right? If you have if you don't want granulation and use a granulating color, you're going to get granulation. That's super important to understand those. If you're like a transparent or a realist painter, like Giovanni, sometimes when he does his work as a realist painter and you don't want to have granulation, then you're certainly going to search out non-granulating colors. And at least understanding those characteristics from your color chart gives you great power over what you choose and how you choose. How from a particle level, which you're really getting into the chemistry of the color, you can actually have the shape of the particle, for example, and the size of the particle. So, how does that behave if there's when the forces that will push one color away from another color, that's all chemistry and physics. And do you have to know the chemistry and physics? No. A lot of watercolor, a lot of any type of art is practice. And the more you practice, that's why the practice never ends. You'll start understanding how certain colors behave. But there wouldn't be a place, because they're so variable, right? There's so many colors and it's so variable. I think that'd be too hard to write something up that how one color behaves with another color. Boy, that gets into just a huge number.
But do we have vocabulary to even describe it? Such as one pigment encroaching on the other. Do we have vocabulary to talk about that? Because without vocabulary to describe ideas, it takes a lot longer.
Let me talk. So yes, there can be. It would be a chemistry. It would be a chemistry vocabulary. Let me talk to Ron. Let me talk to Ron. Let me get back to you on that. It's a good question. Let me get back to you on that.
Anna, when I think about two paints interacting with one another, I think of it as one being much more aggressive than the other. Otherwise, if they're both as aggressive as each other, they neutralize each other more often than not. Now that's a conversation you can have as to characteristics of paints, but I don't know how far you can take that any farther than that, really. I'm not sure. Never really contemplated it.
Anna, may I ask what you're using the orange and blue for? Is there a particular subject matter that you're painting?
It's a farmyard, and I was wanting to add an exciting color beyond the more limited palette, and I was wanting to have a bright orange sky. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off yet or not, but working on the outline there. A historic farmyard.
Okay, so the ones I painted for my palette here, these are going to be the pyrrole orange. This is the cobalt blue. This is the pyrrole red. This is a mix of pyrrole red and pyrrole orange. This is sepia. This is the bismuth Vandate yellow, Aussie red gold, and this is sap green.
John, we have a comment here in Facebook. about quinacridone, a mix of colors, quinacridone sienna and French ultramarine makes wonderful color separations and color mixes, says Buffy Kaufman.
Awesome. Maybe she can, so Facebook is difficult to show us.
Yeah, Facebook she cannot show. She would have to get into Zoom. But thank you for your comment.
Yes. So,
John,
yes, Ian.
how many colors do you have in your color range?
We have 262 colors.
Right. So when you think about that and the combination of various colors that are potentially possible, it's like a it's more than a lifetime's theory to be able to even know even a small portion of it.
I would say that's very, very accurate. It's even if you only use the 262 as single colors without ever mixing anything else, it would be huge, let alone mixing them with any one color. And then when you say 262 at whatever number you would mix, it just becomes just a mammoth number.
I mean, our eyes can see more than that, but just testing the amount of time, it's great. I mean, and again, like you said last week, I think you said that one paint might be similar to another, but it has different characteristics, such as one will granulate, another pretty similar one won't. It'll be very opaque. So you've got that, like it's 200, did you say 40? Sorry.
262.
262 times 262 times however many variations of opaque, semi-opaque, an ability to flocculate and do all the other things that can be done.
Sure, times the number of
it's a mind-blowing amount of opportunities.
It certainly is. It certainly would take a lot.
Oh, yeah. Is there a possibility that you'll do a swatch of everyone one day?
That I would do it? Yeah, I have books of all the swatches already done, and I have all the swatches for every color.
I mean, on a live. I know it'd be an extremely long live, wouldn't it? But
the live would have to be days worth of lives to be able to do it.
I've been on one of them, believe me.
So, one thing that we could do that I'd love to do, certainly because I see a lot more of you painting along, is we could do, 3 or 4 or 5 each session, or 10 a session. And it's pretty easy. All I do is I take one part paint to 10 parts distilled water. And it doesn't, you don't need, because you're not testing at laboratory, you don't need to weigh them out. You just do kind of, one part, okay, and I'm going to put 10 parts of water to that. You mix it, and we could do a wash together. We can actually make them together if you want.
Just before I mute myself, we're looking at a type of stone the other day called amylite. Have you ever heard of that?
Analyze. No, I don't think I've heard of that.
I'm trying to think how you spell it. A-M-O-L-L-O-R-T, amylite. But it's the ammonites that were around millions of years ago or whatever.
So ammonite I have.
Well, it's like that, but in some places where they've found them, they've broken them open, and there's a colour in it, like mother of pearl, but much brighter. I would just, obviously, it's not absolutely suitable for paint, but have you ever tried any kind of paint, any kind of very obscure pigments or stones that?
So stones we wouldn't use.
No.
One, they're just incredibly tough. We wouldn't use a fossil because a fossil would be very difficult to recreate because a fossil, because of fossilization, would have the mineral content of the thing that's around them. So that makes those very, very problematic. And in terms of minerals, it's really getting, so people have asked me, well, John, could you use a diamond? On a Mohs scale, the thing that is the hardest on the Mohs scale is diamond.
Yeah.
It'll just mess up your equipment. It'll just tear it. Even if it's industrial diamonds, it'll just tear your equipment to bits, and it wouldn't look pretty.
No.
So there's just a lot of testing and looking and evaluating. In fact, Raphael, who's right now on the Facebook side, asked me a question about the quinacridones. Are there any other quinacridones available? We've tested all the quinacridones. I believe the only one that, while we've tested, we haven't brought out is Pigment Red 205, just because we didn't think that there was a value to it. So we're always testing, always trying to find something that would be that'd be interesting. Okay, so
John,
yes,
Carrie is in Facebook.
awesome.
It would be nice if she could join us. Yeah.
Maybe she can come to the Zoom side.
Yeah, please do come. She has made a comment. She says, I mix my indigo sepia 50-50 as my darkest dark in my paintings. So she mixes indigo and sepia.
I have that from her colors. We'll try that.
Yeah.
We'll try it right now.
So John, back to Anna's question, as far as like orange and a blue, for what I like to use is the Pyro orange with this like ultramarine, whether it's French or regular ultramarine. And then just for fun, I went ahead and I mean, there's a slight difference for cobalt blue here versus the ultramarine. And I'll do this really wet, super wet for like a sky. I'll show this piece here. I'll have to turn it sideways, but here's my little sky that has the ultramarine. And then the Pyro orange dropped in. Sorry about the glare.
Very cool.
As sorry.
Go ahead.
Has Anna tried a slight alternative from a phthalo blue, red, and orange as an alternative to using ultramarine?
Thank you for asking. I'm looking specifically for granulation and for that interaction
Right.
between the pigments. So I'm hoping to exploit the granulation within ultramarine. And I'm curious, Gabriel, when you choose the pigments that you're working with, do you study the characteristics, and is that a facet that you're looking at when choosing the pigments? It's not just the hue, but the characteristics.
Yes, I really care about how the paint plays, and I would like to go into more depth on what colors push and pull, and play well and not play well. I like to learn that stuff early in the morning with my coffee, so I don't have a complete nightmare out doing plein air painting. So wonderful question. I love that engaging question. I bet you're an amazing leader.
John,
Yes.
what draws you to our guest tomorrow?
So Carrie actually is on the other side. She's in Japan right now. So she's just getting her children ready to go off to school. It's Friday morning in Japan right now. So she'll be with us tomorrow. I think what draws me to bringing the brand ambassadors on is they all have just like you, each of you have a different take about how you look at colors. Kind of comes back to Anna Marie's question. Even if you look at 20 artists, there's so many variables that each one of you do just in your own journey in doing watercolors. And then if you just take two of you and integrate those, I mean, it's exponentially increasing the amount of, I think, ideas, etc. So I like it when the brand ambassadors come on and can share with you the things that they've learned over time. And the thing I like about Zoom and also Facebook is you can actually add into the conversation, just like you've been doing today. I think growth is when you can share. I really believe that. You can only go so far by yourself. Where you really have growth and expansion in thought is when you're querying other people and you're going back and forth with ideas and, well, I didn't think about that. Let me try that. I think that's the kind of the artistic journey is, the removal of roadblocks, not the putting up a roadblock and really not doing something in isolation. I think the more that we can share, it's always the better that we are. So this is a phthalo. This is a phthalo green, and this is the yellow shade, and this is a phthalo, and this is the red shade, phthalo blue, phthalo green. Kind of, I want to be part of the party. This is, I probably didn't do this wash the best. This is something that Carrie was just talking about, and Raphael was saying, when you mix the indigo and I believe it was the
Indian red, the Indian red.
Yeah, I don't have the Indian red, so I didn't do that one. I did the other one. I did to make the dark indigo and sepia 50-50. So let's try that. So this is let's try indigo and sepia 50-50.
That's what Carrie does, isn't it?
That's what Carrie does, exactly.
Yeah. And Raffaele just says it was typical, a traditional 19th century dark mix. In England, though, was indigo and Indian red, but Indian red at that time was not light fast. So
yeah, so that'll be neat. The Indian red is such a pretty color.
yeah.
Oh, criminy, that is dark. Yeah, so that's the
One is sharp.
indigo
Sorry.
sepia.
Ah, that's lovely. That is Carrie's dark. Dark is dark, really dark. Yeah.
Would you be willing to spritz it with water so we can see
Yeah, of course.
it diffuse? Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
You say Joanny Sharp says the info shared in these sessions is invaluable. Wow, imagine how the colors separate. Amazing.
May I ask a question to Giovanni, as he's also painting along with you?
Yes, yes, please.
Thanks. Giovanni, I see that you're mixing these colors and you're moving them intensely and causing intense granulation and interaction and neutralization of the colors, beautiful mixing. I'm finding when I'm working, let's see, when I'm working with big puddles like that, I'll often get a thick spot right here of where the water pools and it makes a thick or a heavy spot, or it forms a halo. See that one right there? So I'm curious, your water mixing is so beautiful and lovely to watch. Is there a way, do you celebrate these and allow these halos to happen? Or is there a way that you prevent them from happening so that it doesn't create the...
Okay, I'll try from the whole. Usually I prefer this mixing without hole, but the hole is best characteristic in watercolor.
The whole? What do you mean the whole?
It's a beautiful characteristic in classical watercolor.
But what do you mean by the whole?
The drops separated, create the whole, for example,
Come si chiama in italiano?
goccia d'acqua.
Do you mean cauliflowering?
Vuoi dire questo? Quando fa la coliflor, no?
Sì.
Yeah.
Especially, for example, mixing paro and sepia. A lot of water.
Giovanni is also using distilled water.
Yeah.
So sometimes you might have variations with tap water.
The cauliflowers happen when there is a uneven drying of the paper. So there's more water in one area, it's drying unevenly to other areas. So to celebrate cauliflowers, you cause pooling, and to avoid cauliflowers, you keep your wash even.
That's correct.
But one of the things that I sometimes do to get it to become almost like, you know, like acrylic pouring, where they put, they have like shells. I sometimes spray bleach onto it while it's wet, and it can do that.
Isopropyl alcohol will do a similar thing as well, but it's a more
Yeah.
defined mark.
Yeah, well, yeah. Or dish soap water, or whatever you call it.
Raffaele also says that indigo is also very good when mixed with dark primatex, such as bloodstone and hematite.
Carolyn, what was that? What was that behind you? Was that is that one of your paintings?
It is one of my paintings. I don't have much art here at the moment because it's all in a big exhibition.
Awesome.
I've only got some new stuff I've been working on for the Bulgaria International Watercolor Symposium.
Are you going to go?
Oh, I wish, I hope. We'll see what the international flying safety is like before I can formally decide.
Great.
So what I have here, those around, this is the opera pink, the undersea green, wisteria, indigo, and the carbazole violet. Here in front of me, the carbazole violet really does look like a violet.
From here, it looks totally blue.
It does. I know. I can see it on both screens. And here the opera pink is really vibrant. It's a little bit more vibrant on Zoom than it is on Facebook. Sometimes Facebook is a little bit better. So I think when I went over the reds, because Ian asked about the reds last time we looked up all the reds, the opera pink has a fluorescent. There's only one of two colors that are fugitive, alizarin crimson, because it's a coal tar derivative used by the masters, and the opera pink. Opera pink, however, is a little bit different. And the reason it's a little bit different is that the underlying color mixed with the fluorescent is quinacridone magenta. So even after the fluorescent goes away, if it ever goes away, you would still see the underlying color, which would be the quinacridone magenta, because that's a one that would not go away.
I have here an interesting comment in Facebook responding to Anna. Can I read it?
Yeah.
Anna, I was not able to post here, but added in a public post. Oops, I've lost it. I added in a public post with the color swatch to my Facebook to share the quinacridone sienna mix and French ultra and some other fun mixes. The quinacridone sienna has light granulation, so even mixed with a phthalo blue red shade and phthalo turquoise, it can still create some textures and color separations that are magic. Oh, I love these interactions between the audience and all the people here in Zoom.
We're starting to see some really nice separations and cauliflowering on Giovanni's image now.
Yeah, I like Gabriel's is really beautiful, and so is Giovanni's.
But Giovanni, did you add another color to your original one? Yeah, he added blue, I think.
Now I use the strong indigo with the light bismuth benedict. Is opposite. Create a little.
That to me is an example of what I was talking about earlier about aggressive. Only two colors that will, you know, butt arms against one another. They've got to be as powerful as each other. And yellow against that kind of blue is they're like almost mortal enemies. So you do get that. What do they call it? Oh, brain's gone. Like a neutralization.
Liliana is asking if all of these colors, John, are opaque colors.
There actually aren't many truly opaque colors that we have. So they're going to be, so the answer to that's going to be no. The majority of them are going to be either semi-transparent or transparent.
But
So
is wisteria an opaque color, for example?
So it's not, you can kind of see that it wouldn't be an opaque color. Well, it might be hard to see on the screen. I need to do that. I need to do that black line underneath so you can actually see. I will get back to doing that.
Wisteria is semi-transparent.
Okay, thank you.
following on from the point of being opaque, would Daniel Smith
Oh, that's pretty.
think, sorry,
That's pretty, Giovanni.
Mm,
Nice job. Ian, what were you saying?
would Daniel Smith think about bringing out anything like a gouache? Is that something that you'd like to look at?
We've already looked at it, and we will bring some gouaches out. Yes,
Oh, very nice.
I've been asked about that. So these are the sticks. The sticks are just really super vibrant. This is the Pyrrole Red right here. This is the Undersea Green, Undersea Green, Undersea Green. Pyrrole Red. Where's my Pyrrole Red? And this is the Phthalo. This is the red shade, which is super, super, super bright.
super vibrant.
Yeah.
Giovanni, what is the brush that you are using? One of these Borciani Bonazzi? Ah, Unico, Infinito. Okay, thank you.
Mm.
Anna, so Anna, having the common language, it's almost some of it, it's a great question. It's a really, really great question. I really like it. And I've been asked before about warm colors and cool colors, and which is why I went over to C-Lab. And you can change any one. You can change any one of the colors, the pigments, to any part of a different axis just by mixing two colors together. So I mean, you can make something cool, you can make something warm, you can make it the warmest, you can make it the coolest. So surface tension, the pigment size. We could talk at that level. I really enjoy talking at that level. Let me think about that more. What I'm thinking about is how to make it. I'm thinking about how to make it easy. Can you do it? Yes. I'm thinking about how do you make it easy? So the answer is certainly yes, but then it's how do you make it easy? So let me think about that one. I'm trying to get my head around that piece of it.
I'm finding the longer I study color theory and the longer I'm working with this, I feel like acrylics and oils don't have this unique characteristic that watercolors have. And I want to celebrate that and enjoy it and run with it with everything we've got. And yet at the same time, I feel as though we're lacking a lot of the vocabulary to even discuss the nuances. And I'm wanting to know more and learn more.
Well, I would think I love both oils and acrylics, and I think you're accurate in that when you're looking at watercolor, after the water has evaporated, what you're looking at is the pigment. So what you're really playing with is you're playing with the particles. And so, yeah, there's going to be, it's different than, you know, the polymer of an acrylic or the linseed of an oil, because they're really within those matrix. When you're doing a watercolor, it becomes way more variable because the things you can do at the pigment level and move around the pigment so freely is just, it just adds to the, as Ian was saying, the amount of variables that you're playing with. But I agree with you.
I find the longer I'm doing this, the more I care not so much about the hue. I think it was Cezanne who said the color is irrelevant. It's about the value. But I find I don't care so much about the hue. I care about the characteristics. How is it interacting? How is it granulating? How is it, what's the surface tension? Is it creeping? Is it not? And I'm excited to learn more. And I know that so many of the people here that are on this conversation we have decades and decades of experience between us, and I want to glean from them as well. Thanks.
Yeah. So this one is the quinacridone burnt orange. So those are the sticks. I want to just do some of the sticks. So I know Giovanni's probably doing the sticks. So those are the sticks. And then from last time, let me see the time, 45 minutes, because I want to play those 2 videos for you. Raffaelli, not gone to Raffaelli's site. Raffaelli is the master of the triad. Raffaelli asked about the whites, so I thought we would see the whites, and we'll see the whites on white, and then we'll see the whites on black. So we'll look at it both ways.
That's a lovely graduation, Gabrielle.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Sorry. I said, that's a lovely graduation. And it also has
thank you
lots
so
of-
much.
lots of character as well.
So yeah, we got some indigo, and I just loved
Oh, that is pretty.
I loved Angela's comment that she read from someone. And then this is one of my favorites. It almost made my dot card, but the good old mummy right here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. That looks gorgeous, Gabriel. I love it.
Yeah, and it's just doing its own thing. I'm not having to do anything. And so if you want to paint stone or stone and water, there you go. You don't have to like paint every little nook and cranny. It does it just for you.
Exactly.
And this isn't even my favorite best paper. This is just some extra paper that I have that's not 100% cotton. So if I put this on my favorite paper, Fabriano soft press, it would really it would make you just hungry for some watercolor painting.
I like to play with color study by actually painting a painting in a group of colors to see how they mingle and sit next to each other. So this particular artwork was like a demonstration for my students to show how choosing a small group of colors and playing with how they interact is better seen through a picture than it is seen through swapping.
That's very cool.
It's lovely. Really lovely. What
That's
color
ama-
is the red? The red shade.
The red is Piemonte, I think.
Ah, Piemontite.
Yeah. And I also really like Quin Sienna. So there's definitely Quin Sienna in that one.
Mhm.
And I love indigo. So indigo's in there. And I love lemon lime. So the lemon lime, it really washed out up in here.
Yeah.
Is there. And Verdita is in here, but it's been muddied up a little bit with neutral tint.
Mhm.
With looking at that picture, what we were talking about earlier about our vocabulary, maybe an idea is something that's a brush stroke that's plain against something that's a brush stroke that is expressive and outrageous.
Yes.
And the contrast of those two is what creates the image.
I've got one more.
Mm. Really beautiful.
That's based on a photograph I took in Volterra in Italy, in Tuscany. The reflection on the glass of the city reflecting back on the glass, and the mannequins dressed, and because they were dark clothing, reflected the city back on the mannequins' clothing.
Mm.
Mm.
What a super idea.
Oh, it almost reminds me a little bit like a cartoon spread. You know, it's split off into bits. And each piece is an individual piece of artwork in its own right.
That's correct. It does look a bit like that, but it was actually the different facets of reflection on the actual window
Yeah.
itself that created all those different components to the painting.
Mm. Different. Nice.
And then this one, playing with
Gabriel, I
contrasting
never
darks
thought,
and lights.
sorry,
Oh,
go on.
nice.
Oh, this one's playing with contrasting darks and lights.
Mm.
So allowing that granulation and fun to happen in the background, and then building an artwork from the marks that were made.
Yeah,
Probably better seeing further out.
bit better.
Well, that's very cool. Is that a phoenix?
Very, very nice.
Very cool.
Nice
Bird of
contrast.
paradise.
So here I have the whites. This right here is the Chinese white. Kind of hard to see, but you can see it right here in the dark. This is the buff titanium. This right here is the gray titanium. This is the titanium. And then I wanted to show you this right here is the pearlescent. And this, you can actually see the bigger particles is the pearlescent shimmer. Pearlescent shimmer are the same pigment. One just happens to be a larger pigment size, almost like the ultramarine or PB29, the French ultramarine and ultramarine. So let me show you this is the pearlescent, which when it dries, we can really see it. And this will be the pearlescent shimmer. You can really see the particles in the pearlescent shimmer, just because it's way bigger particle size than the pearlescent beside it.
But you wouldn't see those on the white paper, would you?
I'll show you. You would when it dried, and if you move it relative to the viewer's eye. So you can kind of see it's right there. See it?
Mm-hmm.
But then as it dries, you would really see it depending on the perspective of the viewer's eye. Claudia Diaz Hernandez does a really good use of the luminescent colors. It'd be good to look at her website. But you can see as it dries more, you'll really be able to see these pop. The Chinese white and the titanium white are very close together on the C lab, and then the buff titanium, which is a PW1:6, and then the gray titanium is also PW6, and the titanium is PW6. So all three the same pigment, different shades of that pigment. Okay. So there you go. There's the whites, and those are really going to start to pop as they dry. Kind of gets back to that once the water goes away, what you're really looking at when your watercolors looking at directly at the pigment, which is really cool. So the more they dry, the more vibrant they're going to get.
Valerie asks, when you say larger particles, do you mean the mica?
So when I say larger particle, whether it's a PB29, which is an ultramarine, I mean the actual particle that makes up the pigment, right? The pigment's made up of many, many, many particles, right? Each one of those is a particle. And some of the pigment size of for example, the shimmer and the pearlescent, the shimmer is a larger particle size. And the shimmer is, the pearlescent is smaller, the shimmer is larger. So when light hits it, you get a different reflection coming back. If it was an iridescent iridescence, you're going to get reflection. If it's a interference, you're going to get refraction, which means scattering. And if it's a duochrome, you're going to get both. Right? So the pearlescent is more like an iridescent in terms of reflecting versus refracting.
John,
Yes.
you know, with a diamond, the more facets that you put on it, the more it radiates its light when it bounces off it.
Yes.
Is that the case with a particle? The more facets are created, the more it radiates light.
You know, the shape and the size is going to cause whether, and the pearlescent shimmer are refractive colors. I said reflective, they're refractive. But to get back to your question, what we see is all about light. I mean, you're painters of light. When it comes to the primitex, which are crystals, we don't want to destroy the crystals. When it comes to other pigments, they are not crystals. The synthetics are not crystals. And they get their refraction, mostly reflection, in terms of how they're created. Whereas for the primitex, for the most part, it's, for example, here's garnet. It's going to be the crystal itself and how the crystal is actually interrelating with the light.
Just one more question, John.
Yeah.
When it comes to paper and the particular paints that you're using on it, what degree does the amount of, there's such thing as heavy sizing and light sizing in paper, does that make much of a difference to how the paint will manifest itself?
So I could tell you in general, but then you would have to really talk to artists about the papers they're using. So in general, the more absorbent the paper is, the less vibrant your paint's going to be. So for example, if I use an absorbent ground and I put color on top of the absorbent ground, if that paint goes into that substrate more, then it's going to reflect or refract less. So the more that you can keep the paint on top of the surface, the more vibrant it's going to look. Opportunity with that, for example, if we used, oh my gosh, the, I don't know, I can't think of this, the paper that is kind of like has the plastic.
Yeah, the smooth paper, satinated, no?
Yupo.
Yupo. So if you looked at Yupo is going to have really phenomenal vibrancy. The opportunity with it is, if you hit it with water, goes away your color. So the play on that is having a sizing that will hold on to the particle. If it was perfect, and this was the side view of my paper, right? This is the width of my paper, so I'm looking down on it this way. I'm holding it this way. Then what I'd like to do is have the paint come in so far with my sizing, but also stay on top, right? Because the more I can have it on top, the more I'm going to get that vibrancy going out. But if it's all sits on top, then we kind of get rid of what we do as artists, which because it'll wash away in a wash. It won't adhere. So you're always kind of playing with this right here when you're choosing your paper. You know, past that, it's all you as the artist and the one that's making a choice of what you're trying to create. But in your mind, I think you're going through this exercise in your mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I did want to show you something really quick. I know it's a minute, so if you can stay maybe 6 minutes. Thank you all. Put this back so I can see you and you can see me. I did have two real quick videos. One is Paul Wang, and I wanted to show you just because it shows the creativity of you as artists. Paul Wang in this small clip is actually doing a painting of a tube with a tube. So I know we ask artists when they're using credit cards or, you know, about the wood or about brushes, This is an artist using a tube of paint to do a painting of a tube of paint. And the other one I have is using a water soluble oil. But I think I'm going to pull the water soluble oil one over to next week because I want to spend the time with you talking about how you can use water soluble oils and watercolors simultaneously. So Ethel, can you show Paul Wang's?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, this is Paul Wang. He's a brand ambassador, and you've watched him a couple of about.
Can you see this now?
Yep, can see it.
There's no sound. Is it normal?
I don't think there's a sound to it.
Okay.
I guess there is sound to it.
Play it. Okay. One more.
This reminds me of some automatic pens that you can get.
There you go.
Hey, there you go.
Really amazing.
Yes, and I agree with Anna. He is a master at doing lines. He's so good. Comes back to one of the questions that was asked early on. Why do you show the brand ambassadors? I think just because there's different ways of looking at the world, and the more that we can experience those, I think just the better that we all become. So with that, thank you all for joining today. I hope you could join tomorrow. Carrie will be on from Japan. Thank you all. Thank you for chiming in. I really appreciate that. So thank you, everybody.
Thank
See
you.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Thank you, John, for this
You're very-
opportunity.
you're very
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you tomorrow.